Hi, this is Mark Stern again. Uh, this video we want to look at Policymap, which again is one of the online mapping programs that you can use for the first assignment. Uh, Policymap and Social Explorer, the two choices, each have strengths. When we looked at the Social Explorer uh, website, I made the point that its real strength is it has historical census data going all the way back, so you can get a feel for change over time. Policymap's great strength is that it brings together a whole variety of different kinds of data, not just census data, which is the primary source for Social Explorer, but data on housing, education, a whole variety of topics. Uh, One of the drawbacks of having so many different kinds of data is that using Policymap can be a little more challenging. You're not always dealing with the same geography. Some types of data will show up in census tracts, others will show up only in a zip code or perhaps even a county or a state. So you have to be careful that the data you're looking at is correct for the area you want to look at. Anyway, let's get started. So we go to find it just as we did before. Type in Policymap and press go. Go. Okay, here's Policymap. So we click on that. Policymap may be a touch slower as well. Okay, actually it opened right in Philadelphia. Oops, it opened actually to where I was before. So I'm going to get rid of stuff. Okay, Policymap is again a national database. If we zoom far enough out, we can see the whole United States. Well, almost the whole United States. Again, for this assignment, we're going to primarily be interested in Philadelphia. So we can use the plus and minus to get us closer to Philadelphia. Oop. Where am I? Oh, Medford Lakes. Okay. We're going across South Jersey. There's the Delaware River. All right, we're getting close. Let's get rid of this region here. Okay, so here's the city of Philadelphia. Policymap has a bit more flexibility in terms of how the map's displayed. You can put up different geographies. If we want to have all the census tracts labeled, we can click on that, and as you'll see, they'll all have their labels on them. Uh, uh, it has water. It has a variety of things over here. If we want to see freeways or public transit, we can do that as well. And depending on what you're interested in, those may be helpful in terms of locating where you are in the city. Okay, so essentially, as with the Social Explorer video, what we want to do is we want to create a report on a particular neighborhood, and then we want to make a couple of maps that that show characteristics of that neighborhood. Um, I thought we might want to look at what is considered now a hot neighborhood in the city, uh, with the unlikely name of Fishtown. I don't know, some of you may be living in Fishtown for all I know. Uh, you can see there's a label Fishtown here, but probably the label is a bit misleading. In reality, Fishtown is located directly east from Northern Liberties, which has been another hot neighborhood. Its boundary as we move up north into Kensington is a little vaguer. Uh, in any event, the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a custom region. That is, we're going to define a particular area as our map of Fishtown, and then we'll generate a report for that. So you always have to create your region before you ask for a report on that region. So you have to start with the map. So I'm going to press this create button down here, and it gives me a variety of options. If you're really a good drawer and you can actually like hit dots to go around the area you want, you could use that. If you're really terrible, you could use a radius and just draw a big circle. The best way, I think, is essentially to assemble a region by taking census tracts or block groups and aggregating them up into the region you want. So that's what I'm going to do here. Assemble custom region. I'm going to press OK. It tells me how to do that. And you can see up here I have choices about what kind of regions I'm going to aggregate. I'm going to use census tracts 2010 because it's faster than using block groups. Okay, so Fishtown, where am I? So here's Northern Liberties, here's Fishtown. So I'm going to click on this one. I'll click on this one, this one, this one. I think I'm going to go up a bit here. I want to go up to at least York Street. So some of this area probably would get classified as Kensington, but why don't we put this one in too while we're at it? It makes for a nicer looking region. Okay, so we've put together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 census tracts, and now we're going to save the region. So it has to give a name. This is important because of another issue. Policymap is a subscriber service. There's a free version, but it doesn't allow you to do very much. So you always want to go through to Policymap through the library. But one of the drawbacks of going through the library is that essentially all of Penn has one account. So whenever, in this case, you create a region, you're going to find that region on a list of every region that every person at Penn created over the last few months. So I always put my name on it. So I'm going to call this Mark's Fishtown Plus, which is kind of a funny name. And I'm just going to put here created in August 2014. I'm going to save it. Great. So the region's been created. And now it'll be outlined as long as I want it to be. I'm going to create a report. So I click the report button up top, and I'm going to generate a report on a saved custom region. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to see if I can find my region. You can see there's this whole list. A lot of people have been busy, although some of these are mine. But Here's Mark's Fishtown Plus. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to ask for a community profile. And now I'm going to generate a report. So again, Policymap is created by not by academics. It's created by the Reinvestment Fund, which is a community development financial institution. So it gives a lot more different kinds of data. It tells you who kind of represents this area politically, population, on and on and on. It gives me a warning that some fields might have NA in them. Income, immigration. There's a couple of things here that are a little disappointing. Like you get to crime and you think you're going to get a crime report for Fishtown, but in fact, the smallest unit it gives you crime for is the city. So we know what the crime rate in Philadelphia is, but we can't say anything about Fishtown. Okay, so it's got a big report here, and we can save this report, download it later on by hitting the print button. It'll give it a name as long, I like that it has Mark's Fishtown Plus, so I'll be able to find this later on, and I'm going to save it. You'll notice it says it's available at My Policymap. And once again, My Policymap isn't my Policymap. It's all of Penn's Policymap. So we have to be on our toes about that. So if I wanted to find this report, I have to go up here to where it says My Policymap. And you'll see, unfortunately, since everyone in the first year class is going to be using one of these data sets, so those of you who are using Policymap, you're all going to have reports and maps up here. So it's going to be a lot. So, all right, we're going to go to Reports. And here's my report. Community profile for Mark's Fishtown Plus. There's this funny little download arrow. So I'm going to download it as a PDF. And that'll show up here as my report. I have to open that up. And there, sure enough, there's the report. Now you'll notice it gets saved with the name policymap.pdf, so you may want to do a save as or do something to change the name, because again, everyone's going to end up with reports with the same name. Get rid of this. Okay, so that's a report, and that'll give you a profile. In terms of writing the paper, sometimes going through a report will give you an overview of the area, and then you can decide where to focus in terms of particular features of the neighborhood in terms of maps. So let's go to Maps. Okay, here we're back. I think it'll bring up my region again. Maybe not. No, I can bring it up. There we go. Okay, so there's that region I created. In terms of kinds of data, you've got this entire spread here of things to look at. Now I will say probably the outstanding data in terms of Policymap is the housing and lending data, because the Reinvestment Fund funds low-income housing. It makes a lot of loans for a variety of things, charter schools, what have you, all across the city. So they have an interest in that kind of data, and they give you a lot more detail than you're likely to get, say, from Social Explorer. So let's go to housing. Uh, let's look at housing burden, if I can find it. It was here a while ago. Vacancy, cost burden. Uh, so essentially, the census, this is really from the Census Bureau, defines two levels of people being burdened by housing costs. If you spend more than 30% of your household income on housing, you're called cost burdened. If you spend over 50%, you're extremely cost burdened. So we're going to look at this is cost burdened renters, and you see it gives us a choice of either the 2000 census or the 08-12 data. So let's look at the more recent data. And you can see within our Fishtown area that the areas farther to the west here, about half the people are spending more. Half of the renters are spending more than 30% of their income on rents. If you move to the east part here, you can see really high rates of being cost burdened. So that's interesting. Uh, so we've created a map of that. Uh, we might want to save that map. So how do we do that? Similar to saving a report, we go up here, and generally speaking, I always just print them because they end up coming down as a PDF anyway. So it's the same as saving them. So I'm going to click on print here. Uh, it gives a long name to it. It gives me some choices about how to save it. I'm going to save it as a PDF uh, and save it in landscape. Then save. Okay. So theoretically, again, if I go back to my policy map, go to maps, here's that map I just created. We can have a look at it. Which looks about like what we saw before. Or we can download it as a PDF. Again, it shows up here, and we can open it. So you can see the way it sets up the map. It explains up here what we're looking at. It gives a lengthy explanation of what cost burden is. Here's the map. It takes the area we were looking at and puts it in a broader view of the rest of the city. And then it gives us a legend over here. Now, one of the challenges with Policymap is you can't exactly see what the printed map's going to look like. As you can see, it's quite different from what we saw on the screen. So there's an option here. So if we go back to our map, at least I hope if we can go back to our map. One alternative I sometimes use is I just I print a screen view. On a Mac, that's Command Shift 4, F4 or Command Shift 4. So in that way, I'll pull the area I'm interested in over next to the legend. I'll do Command Shift 4. I'll get this little X thing, and then I can sweep the area I want. And then very often On a good day, that should show up on my desktop somewhere. Oop. There it is. And you can see in this case, compared to the PDF we created, it's more detailed on our area. So you can either use the official method, printing the map and going to my policy map, or if you can figure out how to do a print screen with a certain area, you can do that as well. Let me get rid of these. The thing about Policymap, as I mentioned, is that there's just a lot of data to look at. So, for example, I'm here looking at people cost burden, but we might say, well, what else is going on in that neighborhood around housing? Go to housing, and let's look at. All right, this is a stumper. What is LIHTC? Well, it'll tell you somewhere. But essentially, LIHTC are low income housing tax credits, which is a federal program, really now the biggest federal program in terms of funding affordable housing. You can see that within Fishtown, well, there's a lot. Each one of these little dots is a site that has had low-income housing tax credits as part of how it got constructed. Within Fishtown, you can see there's not much going on down here in the lower area, but in this upper area, more when we're moving into Kensington, really, there's a lot of action, and that has to do with the fact that there's a community development corporation up in that neighborhood, the New Kensington CDC, that's been very active in terms of using these. Let's see if I can figure out. There's one up here that I'm familiar with because it was focused on artist housing. It turns out you can use federal funds to build housing for low-income artists. You can click on these dots and find out. Here, this is it. Good try. The Coral Street Arts House up there in Kensington. It was sponsored by as I mentioned, the New Kensington Community Development Corporation. And it'll give you project details, how much was spent, the total number of units, the characteristics of the housing, and then total funding, and who it was targeted for in terms of construction. So again, Policymap is a lot of fun. A lot more varieties of different kinds of data. A little more challenging to use because you have all those choices. But again, I encourage you to explore it as part of doing this next paper. All right, I think that's it.